Did you know the LA Kings have their own culinary partner? It's Superfood, celebrating 10 years and over 1 million meals served. Since 2020, the Kings have trusted Superfood to fuel their players. Now through Simply Lunch, you can bring that same performance-driven food to your office. Because when people eat better, they work better. Visit mysuperfood.com. That's mysuperfd.com. Or call 213-973-6145. Qualified companies can enjoy a free lunch for up to 10 managers.
Face of the far circle, up top, Fiala shoots! It's turned away by Ottinger. Stars can't clear. Kempe to Fiala, one-timer, blocked, and Perry put it off the goaltender's pad. Up top, Fiala, right circle, shoots, save, rebound, score! LA King, Corey Perry! It's 1-0 LA! A power play goal, and number 10's got his first in the black and silver.
You're listening to All the Kings Men, the official podcast of the LA Kings.
And then Kempe, they cross. Seam pass, Kempe shoots, and he scores! Kempe wins it! Kings in overtime. Goodbye, good night, game over.
Now, here's your host, Jesse Cohen.
All right, it's Monday morning. That means it's time to crown a King of the Week. Joining me to do so from The Athletic, Eric Stevens. How are you doing today, Eric?
Well, Jesse, how are you doing today?
I'm doing all right because the Kings finally have a regulation win. It was
lo and behold.
Yeah, 4 games in a row or whatever it was that went to overtime is entirely too much. But no, they collect a regulation win against the Chicago Blackhawks. We're recording this October 26th, a few hours after that win. And when it was 1-1, 2-1, I was like, oh man, please just get a regulation win. I don't think I can handle another game being close and then heading into to overtime, but they did it. So you know the format. The listeners know the format. We're going to name our honorable mention, our runner-up, then our King of the Week. We're going to start with you, Eric. Who is your honorable mention this week?
You know what, Jesse? I'm going to cheat a little bit just because I do want to mention Alex Laferriere. He's not quite my honorable mention, but I have
doing
to give
honorable
him some
mentions.
flowers.
Right.
Well,
right.
You know, he was.
Yeah.
I tell you what, he's a runner-up to the honorable mention. But just in the sense that we've seen him, now kind of really surface here. I think he got a real shot of confidence there.
That was important for him
playing some top line minutes.
Strong,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so he's had a couple of goals. He's looking like the Alex Laferriere that we've seen of the last 2 years, particularly last year. But my honorable mention, I'm going to go with Brandt Clarke.
Okay.
I think his last week has been pretty indicative of his season thus far, which I feel has been a strong season, maybe stronger than, say, maybe some members of the coaching staff may feel. Just in the sense that, you know what? He had a nice assist tonight or a nice assist Sunday. With the stretch pass to Kevin Fiala, he had a 2-assist game, the night before. We're starting to see some offense, with him, which he's clearly capable of. But I think more impressively is the fact that he's been I feel like he's been very responsible and very solid defensively. You see the advanced numbers, they're very positive in his manner. I mean, I would argue that he should be playing more often than he is. He's hovering still around the 15 to 17 minute range, and is generally 6 out of the 6 D-men that are playing. But at least for what he's doing, I think he's doing a very credible job thus far.
Yeah, I'm glad that you named him because I agree with you. I think he does definitely deserve to play more. And it's a mystery to me why he's not playing as much as he is. At even strength, the 4 games that we're looking at, the first 4 games of this road trip, there's only 3 players who haven't been on the ice for a goal against. It's Brandt Clarke, Warren Foegele, and Jeff Malott. Jeff Malott only played 2 of the 4 games. Brandt Clarke is on the ice for 64 shot attempts for, 39 shot attempts against. 30 shots on goal for, 19 shots on goal against. The expected goals, the Corsies, the remedial stats, like all of it. It's just I'm not entirely sure what else he's supposed to do to earn more playing time, right? Like he's doing everything that you would expect him or want him to do.
And Jesse, I think too, if you remember in training during training camp, Jim Miller was singing in his praises in terms of how far he's come along defensively and
Mm-hmm.
how far he's come along with his work in his own end. So when you see that or when you hear that, and then when you see as the season is starting to play out, that he's still, though, not trusted really in those key defensive situations. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
the
it's
yeah,
it's disappointing, it's weird. And, unfortunately, we don't go on the road. So, right, we can't sort of grill Jim Hiller. And somebody was asking me on the post game show, well, why don't people ask about it? And I'm like, well, it's not how it's done, right? Like you're not really the post game comments is not the time to grill the coach. Um, especially if they win. So
exactly right.
so it's tough. So it's like, well, we have to wait for them to come back home. Then we have to wait for a practice day, and then you have to find a way to sort of soft shoe in a question of like, well, what can Brant Clark do? But I'm glad you mentioned it because he was definitely in consideration for me. Unfortunately, I have this little rule where if you score your first goal with the Kings, you have to at least be a runner up or an honorable mention, excuse me. And so Cody Cece is my honorable mention because he scored his first goal as an LA King, and and it caught everybody by surprise. It came in a win. It was against his former team. He gets a goal against the Dallas Stars. So Cody Cece was, he and Dumoulin came in, and it was a tough start for them. But Cody
Very, very
Cece,
much a tough start.
yes, but since being split up and being
Right.
paired with Doughty and Anderson, I think Cece and Dumoulin have both become the kind of players that I think it was assumed that they would be when they were signed. Now, that is not to say that I think they should be getting minutes over Brant Clark, but they're not hurting the team right now. And, somebody was making a comment about, oh, the Kings had so many. This is after the Nashville game, and they were saying like the Kings couldn't bury their chances. And I was like, well, they scored 4 goals. The problem in that game wasn't that they couldn't score. The problem was that they were allowing too many. And it was a tough night in Nashville, but Cody Cece, he had a goal, and like I said, it was his first goal as a member of the LA Kings, excuse me, and he was an even, and so he's my honorable mention. Which brings us to runner up for you, Eric. Who's your runner up?
My runner-up, I'm going to go with Corey Perry. Fact that he joined, not only joined the lineup this past week here, but he was productive right away.
Mm-hmm.
Even in this first game, you could see where he didn't score, but he just made an immediate impact. He gives the Kings an element that they really don't have outside of him, which is that net for presence. Where Corey Perry is going to be, and we've seen what he's done, in the game since, where he scored and where he operates. He commands a presence there, and that opens up room for line mates there. That opens up room for other guys when you've got a guy like that who not only we've seen him now for 20 years, so and everyone knows what an irritant that he can be around the net, and you need that element on your club.
Mm-hmm.
Quite frankly, I mean, you hate it when when he's against you, but you love that aspect when he's on your club. But not just that, he still has hands. I mean, he may not, he's never been fleet of foot, but he still has some quick hands there around that net, and he can still put away pucks. He can still redirect passes that in. You saw that he had that really nice goal, there where it was basically a layup, but that's still a skill to have, to be able to to be able to take have the hands to maneuver the puck the way you want to, or to to be able to, put away loose, change around that net. That's a skill to have, and he still has it at his age. And so, he's my choice for the runner-up. He's had a very auspicious beginning to his Kings career.
He is also my choice for a runner-up, and I have a sneaking suspicion that if it weren't for the person that we're both going to pick for King of the Week, that Corey Perry might be the King of the Week, because they're undefeated with him in the lineup. What are they? 3-0 I think, with Corey Perry in the lineup.
Yeah.
He has, I think he's a point per game player in the 4 games that he's played, or he's 3 points in 4 games, 2 goals and assists. He's a +2. And everything you said is true, but then I also believe, and I don't always believe in this sort of thing, but sometimes I do. And this is one of those cases where I think it was important for him to make a statement early, right? We know the back story, we know the history, we know the I'm using air quotes very powerful here, the controversy around him coming and joining the Kings. Even people who aren't Ducks fans or Kings fans, made comments about it, right? It was like, whoa, Corey Perry going, like, everybody knows it's a thing. It's a noticeable. It is a big deal. So I think it's great that he's, when Pierre-Luc Dubois came to the team, it was very early in his tenure. He had a chance. He had there was a breakaway that he flubbed on, that he missed on. And it kind of set the tone. And it was like, oh man, that's a bummer. Corey Perry didn't have that, right? Like he scored that goal in Dallas, and then he scored the next night, and then he gets an assist against Chicago. And you're like, okay, Corey Perry is making an impact. Corey Perry's doing exactly what you want him to do. He seems to have the right attitude. He laughed when they booed him on opening night. And I think that alone is worth just as much as the points and everything, right? The fact that everybody knows it's going to be weird, and everybody knows it's going to be a thing. And so he comes out, he doesn't have to score a point per game the whole season. He doesn't have to keep this up. But it was, I think, important to set the tone early. And I think it's good. I think it helps the tone. I think it helps the story. I think it helps the team. I just think it's best. And so for that reason, I totally agree with you. He is clearly the runner-up this week. And I'm about to ask you who your King of the Week is. But like I said, I think if it weren't for this other player, Corey Perry would be the King of the Week. But he's not, because, Eric, your King of the Week is...
Yeah, I think you could only guess. I think you pretty much figured out who I'm going to pick. I mean, he's the team's best player right now. Without question. And I think what's kind of amazed me about Adrian Kempe is the fact that I think he's 29 now. He might, he's moving toward 30 whatsoever. It seems like he continues to get better every year. That to me is kind of rare, because we're kind of in this realm too, especially with forwards too whatsoever, where most 29-year-olds, you may, the superstars, they're still kind of in their peak, but most have either you're starting to kind of hit that curve, where you've hit your absolute ceiling as a player, and then maybe once you're 30 and post 30, and who knows, we'll see it, with Adrian, as the years go on here. But I mean, I tell you what, and the price keeps going up on him, pal. The longer he does not have an extension, and with some of the stars that are around the league that have already signed long-term deals, he's now, if he were to get to next summer, he would be pretty much the prize of the 2026 UFA class there. And so it's a bit of a mystery as to why it hasn't gone done now. But to go on his play last week, I will say that I think in Nashville defensively, I didn't too much like his game, but that's a bit of a nitpick. There, I mean, 2 overtime goals. He scored again in Nashville. He's their go-to guy right now, and when's the last time that you can say, there's an LA King that's a go-to guy on this club. With all due respect to Anze Kopitar and the magnificence that he is and has been, but in terms of a go-to guy, a guy that you need a goal from whatsoever. When have you been able to say that? And he's off the best start of his career, and it's the perfect time to do it because he's ready to cash in at some time.
There was I wish there was a phrase for it. I'm not sure what it is, but only 2 or 3 times in my life have I seen from a hockey player at any level what I'm seeing from Adrian Kempe right now. And it's not necessarily the most talented plays or the slickest plays or the most impressive plays, but what it is full rink dominance, where when he has the puck, his teammates seem to be going to the right places and the opponents seem to be frozen solid. And so when he's out there, he seems to be controlling everything. And, the last time I can remember seeing a player with that level of control, it wasn't even in the NHL. It was, oh shoot, I'm blanking. TJ Tynan, when he was playing for the Reign, there would be shifts where it was like, okay, he's just clearly so much better than everybody else in this league that he's just doing whatever he wants. And, occasionally you'd see it with Gretzky, where some of the better players, and again, I'm not trying to draw a direct comparison between Adrian Kempe and those types of players. I'm just saying the way he's playing right now, the way he played in the first 4 games of this road trip, there'll be shifts where he's doing everything. And he's unstoppable. And he's just, whether it's the overtime goals or setting up plays, the play where Alex Laferriere scored, was it against the Blues, I think, where Adrian Kempe made the stop in the neutral zone and then sent Alex Laferriere was behind the play. He was out of position. That was not a good place for Alex Laferriere to be. But because Adrian Kempe is out there, it turns into a breakaway and a goal. He's incredible. And much like Corey Perry, I think part of the story, or part of why it's so impressive what he's doing, is the story. Everybody knows he needs a contract extension. He was at the start of the off season and going into the final weeks of training camp and everything. If you made a list of the most important players without a contract, he'd probably be at the bottom of the list. Right? You go like, well, Connor McDavid needs a contract. Jack Eichel needs a contract. Kirill Kaprizov, we're talking about like the creme de la creme, like the top guys. And then you'd go down the list, and to make the list sound longer and more impressive, you'd go like, okay, Kyle Connor needs a contract. Adrian Kempe needs a contract. You just sort of throw it in to make it, instead of 2 or 3 guys, now it's like 6 or 7 guys. And you're like, oh my God. Well, all those guys have contracts. Adrian Kempe doesn't. So now the entire focus of the league is now on, the guy that was 6th or 7th on the list. And it's like, yeah, he doesn't have a contract. And then Anze Kopitar sits out a few games. So now Adrian Kempe is being centered by Alex Laferriere, a guy who's not even a center, who was a second line winger or a fourth line winger at parts of this season. And so it's like, well, how are the Kings going to survive the absence of Anze Kopitar? Well, turns out they didn't miss a beat. And it's because Adrian Kempe was scoring 2 points a game and just doing everything in his power to almost drag this team kicking and screaming back into a playoff spot. It's early, so I don't want to get too dramatic about it. But yeah, he's just been really impressive. And honestly, Eric, if you had told me that this version of Adrian Kempe existed 3 years ago, I'm not sure I would have believed you.
You know what? You're right, and it's funny. I did nitpick him about his.
Well, he's also taken a bunch of penalties
in Nashville, but yeah, well, yeah, but that's been a team-wide thing. No, but you also brought up, like you said, he made that great play in St. Louis to set up Laferriere. No, he is, Nashville aside, he is a legitimately strong two-way forward who continues to level up, and he's certainly the king star, And I would say that moving toward that level of being a star across the league. I tell you what, when people that I talk to, um, have routinely said that he's wildly underrated as a player. And if you recall too, at the Four Nations for Sweden, he had a prime role. He's going to have a prime role for
Mm-hmm.
Sweden in the Olympics. There without question. I mean, he was playing with Philip Forsberg. He's going to have a big time role for them, and that in itself is an example of the evolution of Adrian Kempe to where I mean he's not just a goal scorer. He's not just he has an all around game, and again, he's their best player, and I don't know. I'm telling he's looking more like I think I've really underestimated what his next contract would be. He's looking more like a $12 million
Yeah.
guy now. With
Well,
the way
and I
prices
think
have
it's
gone up.
harder for I mean, I know it's harder just because it's been talked about a bajillion times in my lifetime. It's harder for a winger to impact a game than it is a center, right? Selke candidates are almost always centers.
Right.
Um, but he's starting to remind me of Nikita Kucherov and Marian Hossa, right? In that, there are wingers out there who can impact a game in much larger ways than usually, generally speaking, in my experience, if you have a high scoring winger, it's a guy who, like, that's what he does, right? Not, and no disrespect, that's important, but Phil Kessel, Brett Hull, Jeff Carter when he was on the wing, whatever. It's like, okay, they score goals and that's great. You need goal scorers, but you could nitpick a million other parts of their game. And you just go like, all right, well, the old Dean Lombardi thing about you need strength down the middle. And, was it two centers, two defensemen, and a goalie? But man, Adrian Kempe is playing so well. And again, this is silly and I don't think it necessarily matters, but the fact that he celebrates big, but not like, I don't know where you come down on ostentatious celebrations. They don't bother me, but I know that they bother a lot of people. His celebrations are not obnoxious.
He's got some he's got some attitude that a lot of people
Mm-hmm.
don't really know about. I mean, unless you've watched him closely whatsoever. I mean, he's got some sandpaper in his game, and he's got a little bit of attitude, but
Mm-hmm.
attitude in a good way, and I mean, he's a smart guy, and he knows what's up, and he kind of has that capability of twisting that not
Yeah.
twisting the knife, but twisting the little thing that he prods players and teams with, and I think it's fun. I think it's fun. The celebrations are, like you said, they're
Yeah.
not over the top,
And
but
and
they
they
stand
and
out.
they show that he does have a personality. And I
Right.
imagine that players who come to play in North America from foreign countries, even if they're Canada, but primarily Scandinavia and Eastern Europe, um, there must be at least some code switching that has to happen. And Adrian Kempe seems to have nailed it because, right, the LA Kings team that he joined, with Daryl Sutter and Dean Lombardi and the whole crew, I don't think would have put up with celebrations. But the new Kings
Mhm.
team, look, he's we know Anze Kopitar is going to retire at the end of the year. If the Kings want to retain any kind of identity moving forward, they got to sign Adrian Kempe. Otherwise,
Yeah.
the conversation gets real weird real fast.
Yeah. No, without question. And you know what? Not only does he fit, but like you said, this organization, it operates, at least when it comes to, like I said, players, coaching staff, whatsoever, kind of it's long operated in kind of
Mm-hmm.
a button down manner. You don't want someone
Mm-hmm.
showing too much, gravitas or whatsoever. And I think what he is refreshing. I think, he gives the Kings, he gives, national, talking heads, something to talk about with the Kings. That, they're not just this, hardworking, lunch pail,
Hmm.
club that, that's hard on details, tough to play against, yada, 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 whatsoever. No, there's more to this group. And I think Adrian's is a
Yeah.
window into that
Yeah,
because
he
of his
brings a little bit of
personality.
juice to the proceedings, if you'll pardon the pun. And
Yes.
for a
But
team that
up.
wears, black, white, and silver, he brings a little color to the festivities. He's a good-looking guy. I'm led to believe, and with those celebrations and the points. Anyway, congratulations, Adrian Kempe, this week's King of the Week. Eric, at the start of this road trip, before they left, I spoke to John Kelly and I asked him how many points would make a successful road trip. And we both agreed and kind of settled on 6. Well, they've got 7, and they have a chance to go for 9 against San Jose. Um, San Jose, and I've been hearing for years now that San Jose and Anaheim and Utah and a couple of other teams will finally, make the leap and be good and make, and they won't be pushover points. Now, Utah is off to an incredible start. Anaheim's off to a much better start than I would have guessed, but San Jose, not off to an incredible start. Can the Kings make it 9 points out of 10 on this road trip?
Well, I mean, yeah, they certainly can, and it would be a excellent way to finish off this trip
Hmm.
and build momentum, for the season because the first 2-3 weeks, as you know, it was a roller coaster, night to night, even sometimes period to period, with this group, and when you think about it, I mean, they could have been in a bigger hole than they were seemingly, at the start of the year. So pulling out some of these old overtime, victories, it has certainly kind of helped them find some footing. And heading into San Jose here. I tell you what, though, no, look, the Sharks are not going to be good this year overall. Okay, they're still
Hmm.
really 2 years behind. When it comes to the whole rebuilding plan or whatsoever. But as we saw Sunday, they've got some talent, and I tell you,
Yeah,
Macklin
he's good.
Celebrini, he is not. He's 19. He's a star on the way to being a superstar. He is legit, and he had a massive road trip for them. They had a big win in Minnesota. He had a huge game at Madison Square Garden. This guy lives for the big moments. And if you remember last year, the Kings struggled when they went up to San Jose. Okay, and so I think it was both times. Where they sort of got beat. I think once they were beat like a drum, and that kind of helped
Yeah,
kickstart
that was
them in a
that
way.
7. It was like it was
That
like
was a
late
real eye
November, right?
opener.
They lost 7-2, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right, right, yeah, yeah. It was an eye opener for them, and actually it was something I think that really kind of spurred you know spurred the Kings on. That was one of those you look in the mirror
Hmm.
type of losses, to really assess yourself. So it's something where they can't take the Sharks for granted here. But that's the attitude that they should though go into this game here, much like what they did in Chicago, which is that sort of a similar club. Chicago trying to get it together. They're kind of showing some signs of life here whatsoever. They've had a nice start. And the Kings played a very good road game, especially in the second half of that game. Once they took the lead, they really sort of choked the life out of the Blackhawks, and so I think that's the kind of game that they need to go into San Jose with in order to finish up this road trip. To be able to play a Kings type of game where they're able to take advantage, of their chances, maybe drive play like they can and are able to do. It might be tough if Warren Fogle is out here. We'll see what happens with him, but To be able to do that, grab a lead, and really kind of take the life out of the Sharks and not let them hang around in the game. And a 4-0-1 trip would be, certainly an excellent base to kind of, take off from
I
once they
had
get home.
totally forgotten about that loss to San Jose late in November, and you're totally right. And it was, I don't remember what stat I was tracking after that game, but it was like for a month or two after that game, they had like the best. They were allowing less than a goal a game for a while. Which I can't remember what it was, but it was incredible, and it did seem to stem back to that loss. So yeah, hopefully, that what did they give up? How many goals did Pittsburgh score? And there was like 3 goals that were terrible in the Pittsburgh game, and then they got down to a 3-0 deficit against Carolina. And ever since that Carolina game, this road trip, they've been playing really well. So who knows? Maybe that will be this season's turning point, because they definitely have begun looking more like themselves. There's still these weird individual lapses, but as a team on this road trip, they look more
Right.
like themselves than they had prior.
There, it's been a process. It's a process, um, and it's starting though, like you said, little by little. It's no, it hasn't been complete yet. They're still kind of far from complete, or really, playing their best games. And let's not ignore it. They've had a
Yeah,
pretty
yeah.
tough
I
schedule
think though I
here
think the
at the
hardest
start of the year.
schedule to
I
start the
mean,
season, but yeah.
yes, strong teams, most of them. 8 out of the first 11 on the road. I don't think any other team has really had to deal with that here. Now they've got to show that they can
Yeah.
win at home once they get home, which is
Yeah.
which is weird considering what they did last year. But no, it's been a process, and I think that's how Jim Hiller and the team is kind of looking at this, as is that it's a process. They've had they've had some significant changes here with this club, and but maybe it was going to take a little bit of time and adjustments, in order to find the right spots for people, as you alluded to earlier, especially with the, splitting up Dumoulin and Cece. But, finding the right spots, particularly for these people, I think you're seeing already that they can actually have a fourth line that can really maybe be a difference maker in some games, or whatsoever, at least compared, be one of the better fourth lines in the league, because not only with Corey Perry, but you got Turcotte in the middle, and I think Joel Armia is, he's just a
Hmm.
solid player. I mean, the guy knows how to play. He's been in this league for a while. He's a smart player. He's going to give you some smart minutes. They have the capability of still have the capability of having 4 solid lines to run out there, and that's what this Kings team has generally been
It's
built
it's
on.
just such funny timing, because if I look at last season and you look at a stretch from, February 26th to March 5th, which was 6 games, they go overtime loss, 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 shootout loss. And you go, oh boy, that's not so great. And if you back it up to, if you look at the entire month of February, they start out with 2 wins, then shootout win, shootout loss, win, win, overtime loss, regulation loss, regulation loss, regulation loss, shootout loss, and then more wins in a row. So it's like, if you look at that stretch of 10 games, you go, all right, well, it's fine, whatever. But because these 10 games have been the first 10 games of the season, and you have new players and you have new, whatever, and there's still the sting of last season's playoff loss, everything sort of takes on this heightened importance. Whereas hopefully they hit their stride, they come home, they start winning at home, and by the 20 game mark, right, which is the mark that everybody says, you need at least 20 games to evaluate and figure out what you've actually got. Well, let's say they play 10 more games, and let's say they go 6-4 in those games, or 7-3, or 7-2-1, whatever it is, and then we're looking at one of the better teams in the Pacific Division, and it just becomes a distant, weird memory that 6 of the first 10 games went to overtime. You just go like, all right, well, that's whatever. But they look, for very long stretches on this road trip, they have looked like the team that I think we all expect them to be. And the lapses seem to be shrinking in number. And now if they just need to quit taking penalties, that would be That would go a long way towards everybody enjoying themselves. Eric, thank you for joining me. Appreciate it. And we'll see you out there at TSPC and Crypto.com Arena.
All right, Jesse.
Thanks,
we'll see you later, pal. Thanks.